Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Rainmakers Roundup. I am your host, Mark Iorio, and today I'm really happy to have Ed Samuel with me. Ed is not just an author, but my God, you've got so many different things that you do. You've written books, you have a ministry, you have quite a career.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah, hey, great to be here, Mark. I'm a career coach today, and one of the things that we were talking about was what jobs did I, like over the years, and I've had probably 39 different paid positions in my career, but a couple of jobs really jumped out at me that I was thinking about it. I was a general manager for the Stride Corporation for a number of years.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the shoe company.
Sure.
3 distinct divisions, and I love that. It was an 85, 90-year-old company, and they asked me to put in the competency of customer service into the company and bring those divisions together. Love that. One of the largest organizations I've ever led. Another job that I had was the global director of customer administration right down the road in Mount Laurel, New Jersey.
Really?
I worked there. Yep, I drove 1 hour and 22 minutes every day for 4.5 years.
And you know that because you did the same thing today.
I did the same thing today. But that was a company called QAD. They compete with SAP, a software company. But that's where I got my global experience. And I was every 4 or 5 weeks, I was in Ireland, Birmingham, England, the Netherlands, and occasionally Paris. And I did that for over 2 years. Loved that job. But I also loved hanging wallpaper. I had my own wallpaper business, Hang It with Ed. So that was, and I loved doing that. And as crazy as it sounds, one of my favorite jobs of all time was delivering newspapers at 4 a.m. in the morning when I was the district finance and administration manager for a computer company.
Wow.
So, but I'll come back to that. But, I worked in corporate America for 28, 29 years, and I was my last role was down in South Carolina, and I was let go because a bigger company came in and purchased us.
Okay.
So I was very unemployed back in 2004, and I remember being, after spending a couple of months at home, not sure what to do. I went to the library. It was Borders Books at the time.
Oh, yeah.
I got a book. It was called A Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren.
Rick Warren.
And
Love that book.
It was already out for a couple of weeks, but I remember getting that book. I was so proud. I got that book. I got home. I sat down, opened it up. It was the first page, name and address. It was beautiful. Wrote it down. I flipped the page, and it said, "What's your purpose?" And I looked at that page, and I stared at that page for an hour. I shut the book, and I put it back on the shelf.
And when's the next time you picked it up?
Never picked it up again. Then what happened was I became a financial advisor for UBS, and I loved it. Then I got pulled into recruiting, loved it, and did very, very well at it.
Sure.
But then what happened was about 4.5 years into that, I was given the opportunity to take an assessment.
Okay.
And the assessment was 550 questions, and it was a career assessment.
Wow.
And it asked me to look at my personality in great depth. It asked me to look at what I really had a genuine interest in.
Okay.
And it asked, what am I really good at? And then most importantly, asked me my values. What were my values?
Sure.
And I sat there and I looked at that and I said, oh my goodness. Up to this point in time, I wasn't sure what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And what I've done, I did work, and I enjoyed certain things, but I couldn't tell you what my purpose was. And when I did that assessment, what came out the other end was self-employment, independence, working with people in a big way, not a little way.
Yeah.
And from that kind of drove me into, okay, I'm going to hang my own shingle and start my own company. And that's how SamNova was born.
Wow. Wow.
From that introspective exercise.
That's great. Did you ever pick up the book again? Purpose-Driven Life?
Never picked up the book, but I found my purpose.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing when you can take your what you love to do, what you're good at, and align it to what you think your purpose is. And if you get those three things together, that's how you bring out the best in people. And I think it's how the good Lord, put everything together for me. And I had all those jobs, I think, for a reason leading up to this.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about SamNova. What's the business about, Ed?
Well, it's a career coaching practice, and what we do is half the people we work with are working.
Okay.
Even this week, half the people that called me are working and they want to advance their career.
Okay.
And I was with this big company for 10 years, but I'm stuck now.
Yeah.
What do I do? How do I get to that next level?
Right.
The other half of the people might be unemployed. A lot of people unemployed because of COVID.
Sure.
And then, so what we do is we'll meet with people and assess them, no different than the assessment I went through, if they need it. And one of the questions I always ask every client, what do you want to do next? 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. Once we hit the 4,000, you may need to do an assessment because you may not be sure. Because as a career coach, helping people get anywhere, that's not what we're about. If you know where you want to go, then at that point, once you figure that out, we'll help you with your resume.
Interesting.
And then we build a resume based on where you're going. And many times where people are going is very different than where they've been.
You know, Covey talks a lot about finding your personal constitution, who you are as a person, what drives you, what you're passionate about, what's your purpose in life. What exactly is it that drives you to do what you do? Why do you love doing what you do? You're helping people every day, right? When your feet hit the floor in the morning, Ed, what's driving you?
Oh, I can't get up early enough, and I can't get to work fast enough, and I can't talk to my next new person. I meet new people every day. I talk to people every day. For me, what drives me is just bringing people to a better place.
Yeah.
Look, I've always been a person where the glass is always half full.
Yeah.
That's who I am, and I want to take people and advance their careers. I don't like it when I talk to people who are being abused by poor leaders at companies, big companies.
Yeah.
With big letters on their buildings that we drive by every day, to little companies. I want to help those people get the heck out of those companies or teach them things to endure, but more so, I help vets who are being underpaid. Vets that have tremendous skills, and then companies hire them way under their capabilities and their leadership potential, and they get paid less money than they should. I help them. But I'll also help somebody who, one of my favorite stories is somebody who reached out to me 77 years young.
Wow.
Ed, I want to work another 10 years. I've seen enough of you. I've heard enough of you. How can you help me? And it's a great story. And if you go to my website, you'll actually see the video of his story.
Oh, that's great.
But the bottom line is 6 months later, he did land a job at 78. But he has no intention to retire, right?
Yeah, right.
So you kind of do that. But sometimes what will happen is we'll get a phone call. A spouse will have walked out on their significant other, husband leaving their wife, and I get a phone call. Ed, my husband just left me. I have 2 children. I need to get back to work. I haven't worked for 7 years. Can you help me?
Wow.
See, so you get that. And then you also get a president of a company. Ed, I'm a president. I happen to be a woman. I've hit the glass ceiling. And even for women today, no matter what you might hear, there's still a big glass ceiling out there for a lot of women in business. How can you help me? And then we'll help an executive. So it's not only, even though I'm an executive career coach, we spend a lot of time helping a lot of people in all walks. And everything I'm explaining to you is why we founded the company. When I was a recruiter, I think recruiter drove me into the career coaching practice, because when you're a recruiter, and I loved it. Yeah. But what happens with recruiting, 99% of the people you talk to, you'll never help.
You'll never, right.
And they look at me, Ed, but I can do this. Ed, can you help me? Ed, can you help me? And I used to drive home at night saying, there's something wrong here, because the companies I'm working for, they have no interest in helping those folks.
Yeah.
Really not.
Yeah.
Just, tacitly, because that's not how recruiting companies are paid.
Right.
They're only paid with placements, right?
Exactly, sure.
So one of the premises of finding SamNova was that everybody who reaches out to us, we will help in some way. Little way, big way. They could just connect with me on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I'm connected to close to 24,000 direct connections.
Yeah.
So if you connect with me and that's all you do, you're going to benefit in some way from that. Yeah. But that's kind of what we founded on.
Yeah.
But we'll help people with resumes. We'll help people build out a LinkedIn profile. And remember, today 75 to 80% of all salaried workers in America are found using LinkedIn in some shape or form. So to say you don't have a LinkedIn presence, I just spoke to someone last night, in fact, amazing talent from IT, no LinkedIn at all. And I know as soon as I help her get a LinkedIn page, she's going to have recruiters calling her. She won't have to worry about finding a job.
Right.
They're going to be calling her.
Yeah.
But then we'll help people build out formal networks. We'll help people target where they want to go.
Sure.
See, there's two kinds of ways you can optimize your career. One way is, we'll wait for some job to hit. We'll wait for some recruiter to call me. Another approach is target. Where do you want to work?
Yep.
And how do you go knock on those doors? And we help people do that. And we'll help people with interview training. A lot of times, a gentleman from New York City hired me earlier this year. He got to the final interview and could never close multiple times. And I probably spent more time with him on interviewing than any other client. We did rehearsal, videotaped interviews.
Sure.
He ended up landing a job at Amazon, making more money than where he was last working in New York City. And it was a grueling interview. I think he must have interviewed for 16 different people over a course of a month period.
Wow.
So that's something that we do, right up to job offer negotiation and then closing, and then even helping people once they land. So that's that whole spectrum that we do.
Yeah.
And we'll help people make career pivots. Career pivots is something that during COVID-19, a lot of people have decided to do some career pivots. I did an analysis about 4 or 5 months ago for an organization. A networking group asked me to take a look at the 2008 recovery as it compares to the COVID-19 recovery.
Sure, it's got to be interesting.
Very interesting analysis, but one of the things that is occurring now that occurred then, hey, we're going to furlough you and we're going to bring you back. Well, in 2008, 2009, a lot of people were never brought back.
Yeah.
Same thing's happening now.
Wow.
And then what's happening is we're getting phone calls from people saying, Ed, I'm not being brought back.
Wow.
What do I do with my life and my career?
Yeah.
Well, then let's do an assessment.
Yeah. Figure out where you want to go.
And then people are making career pivots. They're making changes.
Yeah.
Most recently, we worked with a person talking about a career pivot. Works for a corporation up in northern New Jersey. He decided to walk away from corporate America, and now he's going to run a franchise of cutting trees.
Oh, that's cool.
Cutting trees, that's the transition he's making.
We're going to talk about your book, Optimize Your Resume, but we've got to take a quick break, quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk to Ed more about Optimize Your Resume, the do's and don'ts, the SamNova way. But we'll be right back after a message from our sponsors.
Hey everybody, my name is Ashley Owens. I am your personal networking concierge, and I host a show on RVN TV called Connect to Success, where I interview power networkers in the greater Philadelphia and South Jersey area. So join me every week, 12:30 on Thursdays during your lunch break, and now on Fridays at 9 and 9:30 p.m. We'll see you next week.
This plus this equals this plus this and this. Don't drink and drive.
What makes a temple owl? Meet Stella. She's wise, fierce, and she's not alone. Temple University, where owls call home. We are the cherry and white. The city is our classroom, and we lead the rush hour, making our mark on every field around the world. A world without Temple, well, that's like the sky without the North Star. Temple, never stopping.
The Family Law Firm.
Welcome back to Rainmakers Roundup. I'm your host, Mark Iorio. I'm with Ed Samuel. Ed is not just an author. You have a podcast, you've got a radio show, you've got a ministry, and you own a business called SamNova. But Ed, why don't you talk a little bit about the book? It's Optimize Your Resume, and we're going to show it up on the screen here in just a second. There it is.
Well, you know, a couple of years ago, it was known at me that you know, no matter what I do, no matter how much I market, no matter how much I scale my business, I'm only going to reach so many people.
Yeah.
And in the end, you know, there's a lot of really good things that I have in my head that I want to get down on paper so I could touch more lives.
Yeah.
And touching more lives, you can't do it one by one, but a book, you can do it. And I decided to take, really focus on optimize your resume, because there's a lot of things that I see, mistakes that are made every day. I mean, literally every day.
Yeah.
And we've done thousands of resumes. I have 4 resume writers today that work for me, and it's based on the book. You know, in this competitive environment that we're in, it's also so important that your resume really shows your value proposition in the biggest way.
Yeah.
And the best comments I got about the book is, Ed, it's a step-by-step, practical, not a lot of fluff in your words.
Yep.
You explain the reasons why you should do something, not just do it.
Right.
And that's how we wrote the book, and I'm approaching 500 positive comments based on people that have used the book, not just read it, used it and applied it to date. And look, for $20, includes shipping. You get it via Amazon, or you can get it through our website. But the point being is that some people will never hire a career coach because they can't afford it.
Yeah.
And so
for
this
$20, you can get everything you need right here.
And if you're a CEO making $1 million, you'll get value in that book. And if you're a college student and you're unemployed, after 6 months, you'll get value in that book and everything in between. That's what that book was written for.
Wow. That's great.
So that's what we did.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So when you go through this, I mean, we talked a little bit about some of the success stories that you've had, and you know, some of the key mistakes that people make are in the book, right? So that they can follow a step-by-step process here. When you go through a process with someone, Ed, when you're coaching them, you know, that level of gratification, you could see it in the way you're talking about how much fun you're having when you run your business. Can you talk about some real case studies that have really impacted you?
Well, yeah, I have many. But let me give you one. I got a phone call from a parent, and my son's been working 7 years, but he made a mistake, and he did prison time, and he's got a felony. And we want the best for him. Can you help? And guess what? After 3 months, he's now working in corporate America.
Wow.
And that's one of those and he had to make a career pivot. This gentleman had to make a huge career pivot. Those are tough cases. You talk about people being unemployed. I've been thrown some really tough curveballs. That's one. Here's another one. I counsel a lot of pastors. As crazy as it sounds, pastors need career coaching just like everybody else.
Sure.
But one story is, I went to a church, met a pastor, great preach, as they say, great preach, but something was gnawing at him. We met, we actually did one of our assessments.
Did you?
And what came out the other side from this pastor, only about 50% of him was being used. The 50% was amazing, and for his congregation, they loved him for it.
Right.
But the other 50% of who he was, it was like, you know, that part of that tank is not being used at all.
Interesting.
He actually has now become, and I presented to him the option of becoming a financial advisor. One of the best financial advisors within his system, his national system in the United States, within 2 years.
Wow.
Amazing success story.
Wow.
Now he's touching lives just like he was at a church, but in a completely different way.
Right.
And
did he leave the church?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because
so he's full-time
he's at a different. Oh, this was a full time. He left the church.
Wow.
This was, and he's making a lot more money.
Yeah.
And not that money was the motivation, as much as bringing out the best of him.
Of course,
I'll just give you one more. Got a phone call from a school teacher. Ed, I've heard about you. Can we talk? And I said, yeah. So we had this conversation. He goes, you know, for the last 25 years, I've been a network marketing person. I've been a school teacher. I've been doing all this. I want to be an engineer. I went to school to an engineer 28 years ago. I did 3 years of engineering, and then life just picked up with my husband. We went down south. The next thing you know, I'm doing everything but engineering.
Yep.
So 27 years later, Ed, can you help me become an engineer again? Wow. And that was one of those back to the future moments where, well, we had to work really hard. It took us 18 months and a plan, and now that person went back to work as a production supervisor, second shift with a medical device company.
Wow.
That part of the strategy was to get your foot in the door.
Yep.
A year later, guess who's an engineer again?
Oh, my
28 and a half years later. And now she's bringing out the very best of who she is and finding her true purpose again.
Awesome. We talked a little bit about the pandemic. We talked about 2008, how it compares to today. How has it changed your business?
Well, a couple things. The assessment work that I talk about tripled, quadrupled in terms of people wanting to take a snapshot in terms of where they're at and what could they do next. And half of those people are working, by the way, not just the people who are unemployed. So the assessment work has really taken off. That's been a big change. Virtual interviewing is just off the charts. People finding jobs on a virtual basis, off the charts. People making career pivots, changing their direction. One client of ours in New York City, financial services, 27 years in a specialized, unique field at dealing with trade transactions. Now he's working at a nonprofit, making a little bit less money.
Sure.
Couldn't be happier. He called me the other day, Ed, I just could not be happy. I didn't even know there was another world outside of trade transactions for all these years. So that's been different. But from a career coaching standpoint, all the fundamentals that we teach are just as important as they were before the pandemic, but even more important to get it right.
Right.
Starting with your resume, by the way.
That's great. You mentioned the fact that you're blessed with where you are today, and you found a purpose in life, and you've discovered SamNova 10 years ago, and you love what you do. You have a ministry. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, when I was in Arizona helping a medical device company with their recruiting, in that period of time, I was playing racquetball at a desert YMCA with somebody I didn't know, a tall, lanky fellow. After we got done playing, I said, "Who are you?" We introduced each other, and he said, "Can we have a cup of coffee?" Well, come to find out, his name was Steve Brooks. Steve Brooks was the first person Larry Burkett, the founder of Crown Financial Ministries, 35 some years ago, hired to lead one of the greatest ministries in financial stewardship in the world. And Steve said, you might want to think about joining Crown Financial Ministries. And I ended up joining Crown Financial Ministries, and not because I was the best person in managing finances. I was probably the worst person in managing finances. And I'm still paying for mistakes that I made in managing finances.
Sure.
But I ended up moving in that direction because I wanted to teach people not to make the same mistakes that I've made. And I wanted to apply biblical principles to stewardship, all forms of stewardship, how to get out of debt, how to build a spending plan, how to save, how to give from the heart. And why I chose Crown Financial Ministries is because it's about transforming the heart. And it gets at the why, not just the what to do, the why should you do it.
Sure.
And that's what the ministry is based on. I've been blessed. I've been aligned to support up to 60 different churches. I've raised people up at churches. I've done countless workshops at churches. A couple of years ago, I led a forum of 30 widows outside of Exton, Pennsylvania, in a room to give them hope and give them guidance. And I was just asked, literally last week, by a president of a company to come out to Tulsa, Oklahoma, in a couple of months and lead a small business workshop for a day and a half to teach business owners how to do business by the book. And it's from the book that Larry Burkett wrote, 20 years ago, Business by the Book, Applying Christian Principles to Small Business Ownership.
Wow.
And I'll be leading that forum, and it might be up to 60 business owners there. So
God bless you.
these are the
That's
things I do, and it's a nonprofit foundation out of Colorado, and people send me money, and that's how
awesome.
that's funded.
Wonderful. If a younger version of Ed Samuel were sitting next to us right now, what advice would you give him?
When things are going well, and you think you're on the top of the world, and you think you're doing no wrong, hire somebody, hire a career coach, hire a budget coach, and to help you, because where my biggest mistakes were made is when I thought I could do it all alone and everything was going great, and when I found out that, it's kind of like the emperor who has no clothes on.
Yeah.
Once you kind of get into that mindset, it's not a good mindset to be in. I should have had people pushing me, challenging me, holding me accountable. So when I was making decisions that I thought was right, they were probably completely wrong, and I had nobody balancing me. That's what the coach is for. So my biggest advice is hire a coach when you're working, because once you're out of work, then you're hiring a coach for a different reason. So that's the advice I'd give myself.
Awesome. This has been inspiring for me. I really enjoy talking to someone like you, Ed, who has found his passion, loves what he does, helping other people and watching them grow and become better versions of themselves. Where do you find inspiration?
Well, I'd lie if I told you anything other than I get it from the Bible. I get it from the Word, and I believe as a follower, that's where I find my hope.
Good for you.
And
God bless you.
that's where I get it. And Psalm 119 is a great one to meditate on, because it's the longest psalm in the Bible. It's a 15-minute read, but everything about that talks about doing that's where I find my inspiration.
That's great. Why don't you tell everyone how to get in touch with you and SamNova? Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. We're based in Kennett Square. Half our clients are working, half are not working. We work virtually now. You can reach us at 610-274-8214. Again, 610-274-8214. And our website is so easy to get to, www.samnovainc.com, samnovainc.com. You can find me on Google. Just Google my name, Ed Samuel, Career Coach, and then type in LinkedIn. I'll be on the first page of Google. Connect with me there. And I'll be on the radio 1180 a.m. this coming Saturday at 8 o'clock. And I'll be talking about 13 success stories for 30 minutes.
Awesome.
So that's another way to reach me.
Ed, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Mark. Great to be here.
Yeah, my pleasure. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap for Rainmakers Roundup. Have a wonderful and safe week, everyone. If you're out there looking for career advice and career counsel, please reach out to Ed. He's wonderful. Have a good week. We'll see you then.